what would you say are the primary components of this bill that is basically a non-starter as far as you're concerned, and it's a complete, what you would call, Texas GOP special, if you will?
Oh, that have to be the voter intimidation portion of this bill. That really is the part that I really don't think is really being communicated very well. This bill wants to embolden and empower partisan poll watchers. A lot of those guys that most likely showed up to the insurrection. We've heard
so in essence, kind of like with the MAGA brigade that tried to run the bus off the road.
Yep.
So essentially, what this bill will allow is for, if you're a supporter of the GOP, and we know as of right now, the GOP has a pretty big stronghold in the state. So if they were to vote somewhere, in the Austin metro area, Dallas, Houston, wherever, you could show up more or less in your complete MAGA brigade and stand right by the polling doors, almost as if to basically say, just remember, we're going to be watching you when you go in there to vote, and we're going to know if you're on our side or not.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that.
Please share.
So what the bill allows for is I send poll watchers. Most candidates send poll watchers to make sure that things in a polling location are functioning like they're supposed to. The simple things, like, for instance, the one rule that everybody knows: if you're in line by the time that the polls close, then you're good to go, right? Like, making sure that people aren't disenfranchised because they're turned away and it's like, oh, you didn't make it inside the building even though you were in line. They make sure that, because that's something you can't fix later, right? Like, you can't fix that after somebody's left because someone sent them away, giving them the wrong information. So we always send poll watchers. Our poll watchers for my campaign normally will call us or call down to the elections administrator if there's a concern or question about any irregularities. Maybe take notes of any irregularities so that they can be resolved in real time. Well, most of the time the candidates train their poll watchers, but usually the poll watchers kind of just, they're just observers. It's like an election observer. What we did in Texas is they passed permitless carry. So number one, people will be allowed to have guns. Okay. So
that sounds about right. Sounds about right for Texas.
Add that to fact that you've got these partisan poll watchers who are mainly going to go into, by their own admission, because we have this recording of this group that is outside of Harris County that wanted to go down into the city, the urban area, and make sure that they can watch what they're doing. There's no parameters on how closely a partisan poll watcher can get to an actual voter. There's language in there that says that they have to be able to hear what's going on. So we're threatening, number one, the secrecy of the ballot. Number two, the intimidation factor that is built into this. Like, this is completely done for the purpose of intimidating. There is no, and on top of that, the person that normally runs the polling location is the election judge, which is usually some little sweet little old man or old woman that has been doing this forever, right? They're basically stripping them of any power to control their polling location. The partisan poll watcher has more power than they do. Normally, an election judge would be able to have someone removed if there's some issues. They're not allowed to do that under this. And election judges are trained in the election law before they're allowed to even serve. These partisan poll watchers do not have to go through any training whatsoever. So you could essentially have this debate and ongoing kind of fight with the partisan poll watcher and the election judge. The previous version of this bill also allowed them to be able to do recordings. We're not even allowed to have our own phone out and take a picture of our own ballot, right? But they were going to allow these guys to do recordings, which yet again could be intimidating to a voter and definitely turn them off and turn them away from the ballot box. And I absolutely believe that that's the intent, because partisan poll watchers, they're not the police. Like, I don't understand, like why are we doing all of this? So that's one piece that I don't really feel like people understand is part of this bill. Another thing for me that is quite offensive as a civil rights lawyer, as a criminal defense attorney, is this idea of just over criminalization. You know, they call things voter fraud. Most of the time they're voter mistakes, right? And I don't know if they're even really mistakes so much as it is a lack of education of what the law is, right? Most of the time when we think about someone committing something criminal, we think of them as having some nefarious intent of some sort. That's not required in the majority of these provisions in this bill. And one of the crazy things is they were so upset with Harris County because Harris County basically had a bunch of millennial elected officials that decided
excuse me, just for people who don't know, Harris County is Houston. Or yes, Houston is in Harris County. I'm just giving, because Texas is big, I'm giving a frame of reference. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
So basically, if an elected official sends out a vote by mail application to someone who qualifies to vote by mail, if they do that under this bill, that elected official has now committed a crime and they are to go to jail. Why would that be criminal?
I don't understand.
To send out a vote by mail application.
How else are they supposed to just come in themselves and get it?
They have to figure it out on their own. You cannot assist anybody in getting a vote by mail application.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So you can see that it's all about the restrictions. And so, you know, even they're saying, oh, we expanded access to the ballot box. Go ahead, Carl. We expanded access to the ballot box because we're providing for more hours than historically have been provided for in this bill. Well, most states do a minimum standard when it comes to the number of hours that polling locations must be open. But what I liken it to, there's never been a maximum. Now they want a maximum number of hours. So with them requiring a maximum number of hours, they're actually suppressing the vote again. So I was like the party chair, Democratic Party chair in Texarkana, which is East Texas, small town. I never, ever would have wanted 24-hour voting in East Texas. There just wouldn't have been the demand for it. We're just kind of a smaller area. But it's the same thing that, like, we didn't have that many restaurants that stayed open 24 hours a day in Texarkana either. But if you go to Houston, right, you'll have a number of restaurants that stay open 24 hours because the demand is there. And so this idea of taking away local control has been that was also another theme this session, was the locals are not smart enough to handle their own counties. Historically, Republicans have always said that they are the party of small government.
Yeah.
And local control matters. And so what I've decided is the locals can control it so long as the locals are Republicans. But as soon as the locals aren't Republicans, then we need Big Brother to come and talk to us. And so that's exactly what they did. Literally, we had a ton of bills that were bracketed to only affect our largest counties, which happen to be democratically controlled. They're trying to tie their hands. And they're also trying to do everything that they can to make sure that they hopefully lose in their next elections. When we talk about our attorney general, who wants to go out and prosecute everybody, and the most that he was able to even bring cases on in a number of years, the testimony was that there were 44 cases, and the majority of those 44 cases were actually mistakes. They weren't real cases of voter fraud. But I can tell you what was real and what is real. The 700 people that died this year in our winter storm because we don't have a functioning grid. I can tell you about the tens of thousands of people that died from COVID-19 because we had a lack of leadership coming out of the governor's mansion. So to me,
your lieutenant governor should be charged as an accessory to murder, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, all of them should be. But our attorney general, which is where I started this, our attorney general actually went as far as saying on TV, which I'm like, I can't wait for the litigation over whatever voting nonsense we get. He goes, yeah, I had to stop them from sending out those vote by mail applications because if I hadn't, Trump would have lost the election.
Oh, man.
That's what he said. So we know what the demographics in the state of Texas are. We know that in the last 10 years, the growth has been Black, brown, and Asian. 80% of it has been that. our demographics in the state of Texas really almost mirror the demographics in the state of California. We are crazy diverse.
Yeah.
The problem is we don't have access to the ballot box. We don't have access for the everyday person or the poor person, or, you know, we want to make all of these complications. So I know that the naysayers are like, voter ID, it should be the law everywhere, blah, blah, blah. You know, and I tell them we have voter ID in the state of Texas. So like, stop it. And we got in trouble for it as well, right? Texas passed strict voter ID, and we needed a court that would say, Texas, that was intentionally discriminatory, yet again, because that's what y'all like to do. And so there had to be some sort of safety valve. So people have the ability to fill out an affidavit explaining why they don't have an ID and still be afforded an opportunity to vote. So now in this new bill, when it comes to vote by mail, they want to make you do voter ID as well. And let me tell you, I don't understand all the ballot by mail provisions in here. I can guarantee you nobody really understands all the ballot by mail provisions in here.
They don't want you to understand.
No. It was completely intentional, because we've had, I don't know how many briefings, right? And I'm talking about, we've got the elections administrators coming in, and like, these are the people that do this. Like, there's a letter from all these like small town Republican areas, and like the elections administrators are like, yeah, no, so this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And then they're like, we don't even know what this means. Like, this is what's coming out from the like elected officials that will have to follow this. And so there's this, I'll make it as plain as I can. The bill would require a ton of your personal information to be on the outside of the ballot, to the extent that elderly persons would be subjected to identity theft, which is a real thing. I can tell you that that's a real thing. As a criminal defense attorney, I can tell you that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Because they want like now your social security number. It's like you got to put some. It's weird. And then something about where you sign. It's got to be where they were like, we don't even know how they're going to put this info. They literally were like, we don't know how we would open this ballot to confirm the information that we need to confirm without potentially, getting rid of the secrecy that is supposed to be provided for in the ballot. So it's a lot of drama. I don't know they don't know what they did. I'm sure the Heritage people did it for them.
That sounds right.
The Heritage Foundation, definitely.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.